for the longest time, women have been suppressed, and
Yes.
a lot of doors are blocked, and a lot of opportunities, they need to knock 3 times harder for the door to be
Yeah.
open. So, what's your take on that current status?
Lesego, my opinion is this is the time for women now. In fact,
Mm,
if you are a woman in business, if you are a Black woman in business, there is no better time than now. Ah, there we go. Sorry, I was muted.
okay, perfect. You can hear
Hi.
me clearly, though.
Yes, I can hear you clearly. How are you?
I'm good, and how are you?
I'm fantastic. It's raining outside,
Yep,
so I
same
think
on
that
our side as well.
yeah, I think that's a bit of a blessing in disguise. I love rain. I resonate with rain, so it makes me very happy.
Ah, that's awesome. I'm so honored to have you here, Ntombana. And let me just put it into perspective for my Spartans.
Yeah.
Guys, I've got for you a powerful woman, a well-versed woman who knows and inspires people in different arenas. She's a professional, she's a businesswoman, she's an advocate for women empowerment, and she's overall smart. So, Ntomana, welcome to the Starters Corner. It starts with you, network with me, Les. How are you?
Was that me you were introducing? Ha!
Of course, just like that.
I'm so terrible with compliments. I take it as a compliment. So I'm just the worst because I'm the biggest self-critic. But I receive all of that and thank you. And I own it. I take it. But
Excellent
I'm
stuff.
good. Thank you for inviting me. I think you and I have wanted to do a chat about a few things for a bit of a while, even before we had communicated it, you know.
Correct.
So I'm very honored to be here, to be in your space. I appreciate the level of courage that you have to be speaking about relevant topics to people who are willing to lend an ear and to listen. So I'm just as excited as you are.
And now she's complimenting me, guys. that's a Ntombana for you. That's a Ntombana for you. Let's kick started quickly, Ntombana. Kindly introduce yourself because I did it deliberately to just put it on the surface to say professional, businesswoman, and so on. Maybe just elaborate more on that. In what sector are you a professional, and so on.
Okay. Well, yes, you're right. I am in the corporate environment. I'm currently in the mining environment. I always have been.
Mm.
I think my first year of working, first year or two, I was in insurance. And then I was like, oh no, this is not it. So I've been in
Mm.
the mining sector since I think I was 23 years old.
Oh.
I really love the sector and the industry. So I do foresee myself sort of staying in the sector for various reasons, and I think we'll come to them somewhere during our conversation.
Mm.
I am in business. I own a business brand called Karisa. It entails Karisa Catering, Karisa Cares, which is an NGO. So for me, Karisa, the brand, obviously there's future plans for Karisa as well outside of these two.
Mm.
But those are the businesses I'm strictly, and it'll probably always remain Karisa. So there's a sentiment to it for me, the name.
Mm. Okay.
And then yes, largely into women empowerment. It's something I only started being vocal about very recently through a platform and a movement that I call Mqhele Yezizwe. I do have a page on Instagram and on Facebook for
Mm.
Karisa and for Mqhele Yezizwe. And really the aim there and the huge focus is the empowerment of African women in particular. Yeah. So that's sort
Oh,
of me
wow.
in a nutshell, or the things that really drive who I am. And outside of that, and I think you know this
Mm-hmm.
because I know you prior to this interview, I think the biggest aspect of me that a few people do know of is the element of family. I'm very family orientated. It's a big part of me.
Definitely.
It's as big as Karisa to me, or probably bigger. It's as big as Mqhele to me. It's as big as my career to me. So my family really is at the core of my being, and even partially the motivation behind everything I do. Yeah.
Oh, wow. You're so well-rounded, and I couldn't have picked a more perfect person to come and empower us on this platform. Now,
Oh, thanks
Karisa,
for
because I
having me.
actually want us to start with that business element. You know, people, once you talk money, they are
Yeah.
ready to listen. So maybe,
The
maybe let's start.
thing is, it money?
Man, you know, it drives the world in this day and age. So maybe
Yeah.
let's start. You did say that Karisa, in and of itself, has a special meaning and a sentiment to you. Tell us more about that.
Okay, so I'm Ndebele, Mabena. Sorry, I don't know if I said my surname.
I
I'm
don't
a
think so.
Mabena, and and for me, it's part of how I ground myself, who I am, where I come from, and our history as the Mabena people and our history as the Ndebele people. So I wanted to bring in the Ndebele element to it. So
Mm.
ukukarisa is a Ndebele word for admirable, you know, something that's
Mm.
beautiful to see and something that you admire. And where it
Mm.
came from is that the people who really built my confidence, my late grandmother, my mother, are people who, as I was growing up, always used to say, oh, but everything you do is always so beautiful. It could have been organizing a family event. It could have been a little something that I've made in the house. And my mother would
Mm.
say, oh, but the man is so creative. And it came from my dad used to say it sometimes too. He'd say, everything you touch turns into gold. So for
Mm.
me,
Wow.
I felt that sentiment that the elders in my life always reinforced that I have a special touch to everything I do, and it makes it beautiful and it makes it admirable. So I want Ikarisa to always bring me back to that grounding of who I
Mm.
am and to remind me of that, and also be a representation of an African brand.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So
Yeah,
you are passionate. You are quite passionate about that.
yeah, very, very
Wow. No,
sentimental to me.
that's good to know because you know what they say. A lot
Mm,
of people doubt the inception of business being passion. And you've
yeah.
literally just highlighted that the passion was the drive behind you opening the business. So was it really, am I correct in saying that?
Uh, partially,
Okay.
not even. I do think that passion is one of the motivators. Sentiment,
Mm,
in my case, is one of the motivators.
mm,
For some people, you said it at the beginning, money. Money is a motivator.
yeah.
Leaving behind legacies when we start businesses is a
Mm,
motivator. So I think people are motivated by different reasons. And we cannot say that the one of passion is more important than the other. It's just
mm,
that passion keeps you going. Okay.
mm,
I think
mm,
passion keeps you going, and also passion makes it easy to start. So I have a catering company because, yes, there's a
mm,
history behind cooking in my family and with me.
mm,
So because we are passionate about it, it made it easy for me to start it. And when I
mm,
didn't know what business to start, what drove me? I went immediately into, let's start cooking. How do we ensure we can provide the food service to people? All right. So
mm.
through something that I love. Yes, passion is a motivator, but it's not the only one.
It's
Some
not
people
the
really,
only
yeah,
one.
some people just really want to make money and they start something they don't even like. They really
Mm.
don't. And it can be successful, right? Maybe
Yeah,
because they are
true.
good at it, maybe because they
Mm.
went to school for it, or maybe because they've had practice somewhere along the line.
Oh, wow, wow. You know, when
Mm.
I said she is smart and well-rounded, this is what I mean. You know, I ask her about passion and she unpacks it completely. It gave motivation, give money as a motivator,
Yeah.
sentiment. I absolutely love that. And now in pursuing your passion and looking at your working environment, how do you juggle the two, being employed and working within mining, and then now on the other side, running with a business? Because I know catering businesses are also labor intensive, time consuming.
Mm,
How do you manage those two?
yeah. Yeah, it is time consuming. It is demanding, but because I've always believed that I'm a multifaceted individual, and at
Mm,
that time I didn't have it figured out. At that time I was just working and doing nothing else. Sometimes I'd go back to school, but other than that, I knew nothing else.
mm,
But I've always known that I get bored very easily. If I focus on one thing and one thing only. And I've always known that I'm meant to contribute to different aspects of people's lives. And I'm meant to touch people and contribute to society in various ways. So that's what drives me in terms of juggling the two. That's my
mm,
driving force, the impact that I need to have. In terms of management, it's really about discipline and time management. It's
mm,
about
mm,
dictating to yourself that at this time I'm working. And I don't believe in a clocking system. I don't believe
mm,
you must come in at 8 and knock off at 4. I believe you must push on productivity. So
mm.
I'm big on productivity. There's times of the day where I'm extremely productive for my corporate work, and that's the time I'll push hardest on it. And then there's some projects. There's a project I'm releasing for Karisa. So as a result, I'm having to sacrifice my weekends. Having to
Mm.
sacrifice my time with friends. It requires a lot of sacrifice. Oh my goodness, that's the biggest word. I can't believe I forgot that. It
Oh
requires a
yeah,
lot of sacrifice. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
So
true.
that's how I juggle it in times where I need to focus on something. And fortunately, I've got a great support system. But something else that motivates me in terms of juggling is I'm surrounded by women who are not only in school, working, running businesses, but I'm surrounded by women over and above that who are juggling children, who are
Oh
juggling,
yeah.
yeah, being home and being able to be a full-time mother and be a full-time spouse. So for me, I feel like there's nothing we can't do, and I cannot complain just because I'm juggling 3 things, you know?
Oh, oh wow. Oh wow.
Yeah.
That is quite interesting. And speaking of the power of women now, and you also alluded to the issue of women in business. How do you look at the current landscape for women in business? Because for the longest time, women have been suppressed and
Yes.
a lot of doors are blocked and a lot of opportunities, they need to knock 3 times harder for the door to be
Yeah.
open. So what's your take on that current status?
Uh, Lesego, my opinion is this is the time for women now. In fact,
Mm,
if you are a woman in business, if you are a Black woman in business, there is no better time than now, because you must remember both the public and the private sector are prioritizing, or let me say, they have an element of enterprise and supplier development in their organization. And
mm,
within the structures of ESD, there's a huge focus on not only Black owned, but also women and youth owned. So do you
mm,
understand that if you and I start 2 separate businesses today,
mm,
and
mm,
we have to put forth proposals to, let's say, an organization, or whoever, some kind of public body, if my organization is women owned, it's not only Black owned, it is Black
mm,
and woman owned. And because there's a drive to empower women, I am actually at an advantage.
mm,
So I think we are really at a point in Africa where there is room for women to grow. The opportunities are being put there. I can agree with you that in the corporate space, however, the challenges that we encounter, unequal pay, the
mm,
expectations, the some organizations, unfortunate, I haven't experienced that yet. However, some organizations are not accommodating of parent mothering, giving birth.
mm,
You must
mm,
come back
mm.
to work in 2 weeks.
Oh
I
my
can't believe
goodness.
there's still organizations like that. But so in the corporate environment, I think there's still a bit of way to go, but at least we have policies that are driving
Mm,
the right behavior and are driving the right leadership. But in business, I really think it's a woman's world right now. You want to be a woman in business because of those opportunities.
Oh, wow. And I would say I do agree with you. The time is now. So for all women that are listening, I hope their ears are widely open because you
Yeah,
said it so clearly, hey? So
yeah.
with all that said, what are some of the challenges you've encountered in business specifically, and how have you overcome those challenges?
It's testing the market. It's understanding my customers and what the needs are. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of catering companies. It's
Mm,
me having established what is my niche, what is my offering, what is my selling point, and which markets am I trying to pull in. It's having one of the challenges was establishing that. It's taken me a good 18 months to at least start and have an understanding of that. I have a very new business.
mm,
So that has been challenging for me. Number two, trying out a concept and it not working out. I mean, I tried doing this concept of um, selling packaged meals for people who don't want to cook, particularly on Sundays, right?
I
But
remember
the
that.
learning, yeah, Ikarisa
Mm,
Sunday goes, and
mm.
the challenge, or let me say, the learning from that was that actually a lot of people cook on Sundays. It's bonding time for
Yeah,
family. Sunday is
yeah.
sitting by the pool, Sunday music, the pots, the house is smelling like nice food. And I
Mm,
realized, and my market was complaining about it, that
mm,
this is not working out for us. I'd received from some feedback, and I take feedback in. I'll criticize the feedback, but I'll take it in and I'll try to understand why here, why there.
mm.
So that didn't work out as well as I intended it to be. But the beauty of it was that there was the learnings from it, and then there was the birth of what I'm launching tomorrow. And we are no
Oh,
longer
wow.
limited. Yeah, we are no longer limited to Sundays, and we're no longer limited to once a month. Because I remember I used to do that at once a month. Also, that's another thing. Because our huge focus was largely on offering the catering service, private
Mm,
corporate events. That was our huge
mm,
focus. But then I saw this need and this market for packaged meals. If we can go into Woolworths and buy
mm.
a ready-made lasagna just to warm it up,
Yeah.
I don't understand why we can't sell those things ourselves. I've tailor-made those products to be suitable for the people who like the heavier side of food and people who want healthier food options, right? So
Mm,
really focusing on not only the services side anymore, but offering the product of prepackaged meals. It's a delivery service. You don't have to fetch it yourself. It's food you can store in the fridge, in the freezer for specific periods of time, and you just literally warm it up. And like you're saying, women these days, men these days are juggling a lot. We're juggling
yeah.
business, we're juggling school and the corporate environment in your family. So if you're spending your weekdays slaving it away at the stove for 2 hours, that's quality time. So
Mm.
I'm really trying to address that. I'm trying to address that need, and trying to address that because I believe in family time.
Okay, I can still hear you. Are you still with me?
Sorry, I had a phone call coming in. I hope they
Oh,
don't
okay.
call again.
Okay, no
Sorry.
problem. No
Yeah.
problem. Okay,
Okay.
thank you for that. I understand the challenges. Now, two things. The first
Mm.
one is that today is the 28th of Feb. So when you say tomorrow, you're referring to the 1st of March 2022,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So when people see this, they must know and understand that you would have already launched what
Oh,
you've just discussed with us,
absolutely.
right? And then
Yes.
secondly, what's your reach so that your market is clearly defined for those that are actually watching?
For me, it's people who want to save time. That's the
Mm.
first priority. I realize this myself, that I myself need this service.
Mm.
So it's people who are really trying to save a little bit more time and use that time on other things, other endeavors, and on quality time with their families. And a key thing for me is convenience. It's about convenience. It's about knowing your supper is taken care of. You just need to warm it up. The third thing is quality. People who appreciate quality. Sometimes these packaged meals lose the homely element. They lose the home cooked element. A lot of processing involved. So for that reason, I've really tried as best as I can to ensure that we keep the element of home cooked, delicious, really feeling like your mother's kitchen. That's what I wanted to feel like when people eat this food. It mustn't feel like this food with just a lot of other stuff added to it just to make it last 6 months. No, that's not what I'm trying to sell here. So how do you keep quality while you are promoting convenience? So those are the people that I'm looking for, people that are really juggling a lot of things in their life and are looking for more time in their day.
And your geographical demographics, what's your market in that sense?
I am based in Ekurhuleni, which is the east of Gauteng. So the East Rand is where I'm based. However, we do deliver within a 40-kilometer radius.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
East Rand, yes, we deliver within a 40-kilometer radius.
Oh, wow. And just so people understand what 40 kilometers is from the Boksburg East Rand area, even city of Joburg people past the inner city, that side, they are still covered by that radius, right?
Absolutely. Yes, definitely.
Excellent stuff. Please share your handles in relation to the business element for the people that are watching, and how can they contact you?
Okay. Karisa Catering is Karisa_catering on Instagram and on Facebook. Mqhele Yezizwe, which is the woman empowerment movement and initiative, is exactly that name on Instagram and on Facebook. So that's how you can contact us. And if you go to the Karisa page, you'll be able to click a link that'll direct you to our WhatsApp page in case you need to WhatsApp us.
Nice stuff. And I'll also just do my best to put it up on the screen for people's convenience.
Okay,
right?
thank you.
Yeah. And then just one last thing in terms of the business element, man. You have a love for corporate. You've already basically highlighted that. So would you ever quit your corporate job and go full-time into business? And what do you think about that overall, like that concept? Yeah.
Okay. The answer is yes, but it's a long yes.
Okay. We have time. We have time.
It is the plan. Leaving the corporate environment is the plan. I'll tell you later why it's the plan, but it's the plan, but it's not now. Certainly not within the next 5 years. I'm looking at somewhere between the 5 and 10-year range, depending on how far my reach within the corporate space is then. That will determine it. But certainly within the next 5 years, I plan on staying in corporate. The reason why I plan on staying, one of these, about 2 or 3 reasons, but one of my key driving forces for making that decision was that I believe that there is an impact I'm supposed to make in the corporate environment. There's an element of mentoring, coaching that I haven't done to the extent that I'd like to. There's some changes in structures such as, let me say there are some contributions to structures such as ESD, CSI, local procurement of goods to empower the community that is South Africa and Africa, that I'd like to be involved in. Our business development, women in the mining sector, and our contribution to business development. So all of those things that are things that I'd still like to largely contribute to. And only once I feel like, I did it and I reached the goals and I made the impact that I wanted to, and it's made a difference in women's lives in this sector, in this country, only then I will step away. So because I'm still doing so much of that, I cannot afford to walk away now. It's purpose for me. It's an element of my purpose. So I cannot afford to just leave it and be like, oh, no, this is not for me, because it's not about me at the end of the day. And then the reason why I will leave is because that too speaks a lot. Business speaks a lot to my legacy. Babales, you won't believe, my entire life, my mother will tell you, my mother was an entrepreneur at heart. She's a teacher by profession, but at heart, she's an entrepreneur. So she used to encourage me to do these things. Sell this. Don't you want to provide this service? And I was younger. No, not me. I'm going to be a professional, and that's it. That's who I was. I never envisioned myself being an entrepreneur, ever. Eventually, it happened, motivated by different things. And only after it happened, I realized it's actually a part of my legacy, because I am surrounded by elders, both alive and late, who are entrepreneurs at heart. So for me, entrepreneurship I'm even honoring. It's not only about me and what I'm trying to build for the future, and my future family, my future children, or whatever. It's not what I'm trying to build for them and myself, but also paying homage to my elders in the past. I mean, my paternal grandmother sold at the market. That's what she did for a living. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, ran a dry clean, a supermarket, a taxi business. Imagine at a time when women weren't empowered, when there were these biases around women roles and what women should be. My grandmother was running multiple businesses, and then she went back to corporate. And then, so my grandmother, at some point, my paternal grandmother sold cakes to raise her children. This one's very funny. My maternal great-grandmother sold weed.
Oh, wow. She was ahead of her time, eh?
What? She was way ahead of her time. This is
Yeah.
more than 50 years ago.
Oh,
She was
wow.
selling weed. And who were the transporters? My mom and her cousins.
Whoa.
So yeah, so let's forget about the product for a while. But
Yeah.
the concept, you
The
get that.
principle.
My
Yeah.
mom sold eggs at the train station at 10 years old. She'd go buy eggs, she'd boil them and sell them at a profit at 10 years old. So I think for me, it's also, I'm really honoring legacies of the people that came before me, and trying to continue that and trying to nurture it in our families. And I'm trying to also make sure I introduce it to our families so that our children go right into it, that they don't wait till they 30 whatever, like some of us, that it comes naturally to them, and that they want to build their own brands and build their own legacies. So definitely I will leave for that reason, because it will require my full dedication and time.
Oh, wow. Guys, go out there, support Karisa Catering, and, empower women in your own way, because support in and of itself is empowerment, right?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
I would
It
like
is.
us to now jump into the element of women empowerment. As it is, you've counted
Yeah.
your grandmother, you've counted your mother, you've counted those maternal aspects that have come before you and that have left their legacy and then transmuted what they know and who they are in you through elements such as your purpose and passion, which is now entrepreneurship. But also in the corporate space, you spoke a lot about empowerment. So, am I correct? And can you add a bit more into the drive for empowering women in particular?
Yeah. I'm going to compare it to racial segregation and addressing um, uh, social ills of the past in terms of race. So when I look at the empowerment element of why are we paying such a huge focus to women, it is for me trying to address a past ill. Okay, the past ill being that women were oppressed, still are, however, there's been strides. So that's fantastic. So when you try and address a past ill, it will always seem like you are paying too much attention to that particular group of people, in this case, women. The same way you look at triple BEE and it's like, how? But then you are now empowering all these Black people. What about the other races, you know? So it'll always seem like exclusion. What I like about women empowerment is that for me, it's an internal thing. It's a feeling. It's about evoking. It's not only about equal opportunities. We have policies that are trying. We have policies that are trying to address those things. Yes, we need to make noise about them, and ensure that they are being enforced. Yes, men are still higher paid in corporate than they are their male counterparts. Yes, those ills are still there. However, after all we've done for policies in organization in terms of ensuring equalities, what are we doing and what are we saying to women for them to believe that they are empowered, for them to believe that they are strong, and them to believe that they are able to make their own choices? What are we doing? And that's the approach I am focusing on for women empowerment. It's uplifting women's feelings inside about themselves, because we can give them all the opportunities in the world, but if we have not inspired confidence and courage in them, they won't grab those opportunities. They will still sit there with all that opportunity and all of that, ability, pardon me, with all the possibilities in the world. But internally, they will have an inability to go out there because they do not know who they are. They do not identify who they are in relation to the world. They do not identify their contribution to the world. Something I'm focusing largely on is particularly women in Africa. And Babales, if I ask you, name 5 prominent, influential women in the history, men in the history of Africa, you can count 100 for me. But the average person in Africa does not know the women who made history. I'll tell you the first person they'll tell you about is Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Okay, so, but do they understand the women in West Africa who were faced by severe colonization? Who were those women who played parts in running those empires? Who are those women, not just in South Africa, but the rest of Africa in our history, who contributed to what Africa is today? We don't know that because we don't talk about those women. So my aim is to really make obvious and be loud about our role models in African women, that in a time where women were oppressed, these women were still pushing on in the improvement of lives in Africa. And they were breaking barriers from a long time ago. There's a lot of beautiful examples of breaking barriers in our current day and age. And I do aim to focus on that too. But I'm really trying to remind women who we are looking up to and the things that women have achieved that no one makes noise about. You know who the richest man in Africa is right now, right? But do people know who the richest woman in Africa is and what she does and how she built that empire? Do people know?
Not really, because
oh no, we don't know our queens. We don't know them. And how can we be future role models when we don't understand our history? So I'm really trying to impact the African women internally. And then obviously and I'm really focusing on building the brand right now. And then we'll get to a stage of opportunities, initiatives, So at this point, I'm really speaking to the feeling and I'm speaking to the heart, and I'm trying to center women and I'm trying to get them to find their ways to center themselves. That's my focus right now.
Then let's focus on the brand, Mqhele Yezizwe. Tell us about that brand specifically. How it came about, why it's so close to your heart, and why it's your baby, as you were about to say.
It's such an emotional thing for me that, remember, it's a venture that I'm putting time into, that at the current moment I'm willing not to make money from. Okay, because it's my give back. I haven't always been confident. I haven't always been
really.
What?
What? I'm the one that's supposed to say what? Because since I've known you on a caliber of confidence that is unmatched at times, you know?
When do you think that comment of "I don't take compliments well" comes from? That comes from an,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it comes from an inability to identify the greatness, like that people see in you, right? Because I'm a critic of myself. So, yeah,
Mm,
so I wasn't always expressive about my confidence and about who I am. And I didn't always own it. When I was younger, sometimes I'd be like, oh, but people want that. So maybe I must be that. Mm-mm. It's not working out like that anymore.
mm,
So for me, it's about inspiring that confidence and inspiring the queen in everyone. I realized we live in a society where you can only be a queen through a title, right? You can only be a queen because there's something prominent. You come from this family, or you have this much money, whatever it is. And as much as I respect structures of hierarchy, I really do. I do believe that there's a queen in each and every woman in Africa. And I just think that what we're meant to do is we're meant to identify the queens that we are. And that's what I'm trying to help women to do first, before addressing any inequalities and any social ills. First,
mm.
trying to build up the internal queen. And that's
The
where the
self.
name, that's, yeah, the self, trying to build the self, actualizing who are you. and
Mm,
um and that's why the name Mqhele Yezizwe, Mqhele being the Zulu word for a crown, and
mm,
when I say Yezizwe, I mean of nations. So
mm,
in Mqhele Yezizwe is crowns of nations. Those nations, I'm referring to African nations. So I'm
mm.
referring to all women in Africa, and I aim for my reach to be across the whole of Africa. So that's why I'm accommodating all the nations of Africa. And you will see it's so perfect that we talk about Mqhele, because behind me you'll
Yeah.
see I'm going to lift my screen up a bit just to show these. But if you look
Oh,
at my
wow.
photos, you'll see
Yeah.
like I've got on my right, your left, I've got
Yeah.
a crown it's a Ndebele crown, the Manala clan. That's the clan I come from. It's actually
Mm.
believed to be the royal family crown. So,
Oh,
and then in
wow.
the center, I've got like a gold floral crown. That was a representation of the richness of Africa in terms of the color, in what we represent in resources. Then I've got a black isiqholo samaZulu. So I've got another crown here, a very bright, colorful one.
Mm, mm,
I've also got the red one. I've got a few crowns. I've got a collection of a crown. But the aim is to say every woman deserves a crown. And any chance
mm,
I get, you'll find me with something on my head. Any chance I
mm,
get, because wearing the physical crown channels my inner queen. That's what it does.
mm,
It channels my confidence. It channels my, me thinking I can really do anything I absolutely want to do in this world. It channels that girl. I don't need to have that crown on. We wear invisible crowns every day. We walk into corporate offices where sometimes you are met by challenging circumstances. Sometimes you are met by egos. You are met by inequalities, yet we stand up for ourselves. And then you come home and you have to be a sister, a mother in some people's cases, and you have to be daughter of the year, and you have to be a support system. So really, every woman is wearing an invisible crown. So Mqhele for me is how I want people to ask the question, why are you always wearing crowns? I'm actually disappointed in
mm.
myself that I didn't wear one on this thing.
I
I'm very,
actually thought about it and then I figured it's because of all the crowns behind you that you've told people about now.
no. Okay, sorry, I'm here now. I'll wear it.
I like that.
I just picked the easiest one to wear. That was somewhere here close to me.
I like
Um,
that. And as women, you're bold. So I'd say you chose the perfect one.
the perfect one, yeah. So for me, when you wear a crown, it channels a certain person in you, and it channels the queen in you. So and really in the long term, like you said, it's about creating opportunities, it's about creating spaces, the right spaces, for women to feel safe to be themselves, and to fully engage and fully participate in the economy. So I think that for that reason, I will always encourage the Queen and every woman to just rise up and come out.
Oh, beautiful stuff. So which platforms are you using to encourage and empower women with that element of self and self-identity, self-awareness, and recognizing that they are queens? Tell us about the platforms. How do people get exposed to such from you?
Obviously, Facebook and Instagram currently is my current reach. And the name of the page is Mqhele Yezizwe. Even if you search under my name, Ntombana Mabena, it will take you to that page, because that's who I am. I no longer identify outside of Mqhele Yezizwe. I don't identify outside of it. So that is who I am. I don't even separate the two anymore. That is who I am. So that is how you can be exposed to that space. I'm trying to create an energy, Babales. I'm trying to encourage a certain energy in women, so that it is constantly their energy, so that they walk into a room and when they speak, people listen. I'm trying to encourage women who have an undeniable presence, whether they are speaking or not. It's just that in me, it's through speaking. So you can go out to those platforms. I embrace African women in history. I embrace the beauty of African women. I'm always embracing the beauty of Africa. It's color, it's through dance, it's through pictures, all of these things, anything that evokes that positive energy of confidence in females. That's what I'm working on right now. That's my huge focus. And on some days I address issues that are affecting African women, you know. The other day I was talking about the education of a girl child, and I was addressing, you know, some facts in terms of how there's more girl children that are out of school than boy children in Africa. There was actually a number to it. It was in the millions, but that's how many girl children are not in school. And for me, that was so traumatic, and I had to then find out, but why are more girl children not in school if women equally as men could contribute to the economy? And it spoke about, because of forced early child marriages, of course, in certain countries that is a practice, or social bias of what women should be. They shouldn't be in school, they shouldn't have careers. So that kind of social bias, some religions promote that women stay at home, therefore it doesn't promote the little girls going to school. So all of those, something simple. You see, we've got 1 million sanitary drives, and people ask themselves, why are there so many sanitary things going on? It's because in the week that a girl that cannot afford sanitary, she's not going to school. She's missing out on 5 days that the boy child gets to sit behind the desk every day. But she cannot go to school because we take for granted sanitary resources. So the chances of her failing and not succeeding at school are slightly higher because of things like that. You see, so those are the various topics that we touch on, topics that are affecting women in Africa, that are affecting girls in Africa. Because remember, we want to be the agents that contribute to that change. There are many across Africa. We appreciate them, we look up to them, but we want to be part of that change of all these issues that affect African women, and then obviously provide the right opportunities for African girls and African women, over and above providing and encouraging the confidence and the courage that they need. You then need to obviously provide the opportunities.
Well, you know, you've talked about the platform, yeah, Facebook, right? And you've got such a powerful voice that I'd like to see you on this platform, yeah, YouTube, you know, because you speak so elegantly, but you're such a force. No, truly, you're such a force. And that voice, it needs to expand beyond that Facebook profile. So just use many other platforms to spread this message, because I kid you not, it's a powerful message. You've enlightened me now on facts, you know, and we always think of things in silos, what's happening around us. You are
In
taking
South
it beyond
Africa.
in South Africa. You are taking it
Yeah.
beyond. You are taking it continentally. And I know once done with conquering the continent, you are likely to move into the diaspora and all the other African women that have been displaced globally, you know? So use platforms that will reach people globally as well. I know Facebook is the largest platform that you can use, but expand that. That's what I'd encourage. And with the confidence and zeal that you have, I know being in front of a camera, you're not camera shy, you're articulate, you are clear, and your points are like they hit hard. So I think just explore that. Do me that one favor. If we can get anything out of this conversation, do me that one favor.
You know, the thing is, okay, so you believe in vision boarding, right?
Yeah.
And I kid you not, my vision board has that on it. And I think even on a larger scale, and I will do it, Babales. Thank you for being the reassurance, the reassuring voice, and an encouragement towards it. I have people around me that have also encouraged me to do it. It is part of the plan. It may not be now, because you know what I'm learning? I'm learning the value in timing. It took a lot from me, because I'm that girl now. We must do it, everything now. Launch Yonkito, everything we want to try, let's do it all together. And there was a time I took a break for a couple of months. And in that time, I was really centering and listening more than I was speaking. And definitely speaking up and on bigger platforms like YouTube, like having a channel, certainly part of the future. And thank you so much, you know, for speaking to that manifestation of mine, because it is
Receive it,
somewhere.
because it shall come into fruition for sure.
Amen. Thank you. I'll do
And
it, Pavali.
good stuff, Ntombana. And speaking of manifestation, things coming into fruition, and energies that you mentioned earlier on, one thing that you said, you know, when we're still organizing this interview and trying to make it happen, you referred to the issue of spirituality and how you feel you actually don't wear it on your sleeve is the expression that I think we used in discussing it, right?
Yes.
But it comes out so profoundly now as you speak. So I want us to jump into the realm of spirituality. What's your take around spirituality, religion, and culture?
I'm going to say very few words about religion. Okay. Really, I respect everyone's beliefs. I respect that people have different belief systems and are centered by different things or different powers that be. I grew up in a Catholic church. So I grew up, we do things by the book. Go here, do this, you do that, it's wrong, this is right, you are forgiven. Go to that building, now it's this. So very structured, very textbook-like. It must either be like this and like that. But guess what? I do believe in the higher power that is God. So that was my first grounding. And I think religion has a lot to do with it must be like this. And there's no alternative, right? And I think it's a group work. There's something about religion that I always say, it's such a teamwork religion. It's such a group work. But for me, spirituality is an individual thing. It'll differ for me, it'll differ for you. And you know, this element of spirituality, who says it does not include religion in it? Who says it doesn't? Right? I believe in a God, and I believe in my God, and I believe in my ancestors as well. Now, and I'm not saying religion is one and spirituality is the other. I just think everyone should be free to have their mix of what they want to be centered by. And no one must dictate that, what are you? Are you spiritual? Are you religious? You see, we're having the wrong conversations. For me, my conversation is, listen, what centers you? Where do you go? Where do you find yourself? Where do you find your peace? I don't care what it is. Where do you find it? And that's the conversation I think we as people need to start having more of, and not trying comparing these different aspects. And then obviously there's the element of culture, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm big on culture too. It's obvious because like I have this collection of beads or anything beaded. But obviously that's not just what culture is. That's just the physical representation of culture and the
Yes.
color. Yeah, the tangible stuff. But I'm big on culture, and you know this because you've spent some time around our family, and
Yes.
we're really custodians of our surname and what we stand for as a family and
Yep.
who we are in the world in terms of the impact that we can have on people, and how we use what we've been given internally as a service to the world. So then there's the element of culture that sometimes conflicts for anyone who in a religious space believes you cannot do this because it conflicts with the religion. So for me, I strongly believe I'm a really well-rounded person. I am not one-sided. I am not defined purely by one thing, but I believe I am defined by multiple forces and influences that bring me together and make me this individual and make me this whole person that I believe I am. You see?
I get you wholeheartedly. So this
Yeah.
power of manifestation, where did you how were you introduced to it?
Ooh. I think through, remember when we were growing up, there was The Secret.
Yeah, I remember that documentary.
Yeah.
I've actually spoken. I think I've done 3 videos on the channel on that.
On The Secret. Okay.
Yeah.
So in The Secret for me, I think was my first exposure to manifestation. Prior to
Mm.
that, I didn't understand anything. And then
Mm.
my first year of vision boarding, 2014, or
Mm.
no, 12. 2012, it just wasn't
Mm.
as elaborate as and intentional as my vision boards are now. I used to
Mm.
just write a few things. Do you know, I came up with the name Karisa in 2010. And
Mm.
imagine at that time, remember, I wasn't even into entrepreneurship to begin with. But I wrote it down somewhere typed it on a Word document. I even had a background. It was pink and purple. It was supposed to be a pink brand. It was pink and clouds in the sky, and it was purple. The name has always been there, who we are, but I didn't know what we were going to do. So
Yeah.
can you believe that fast track when I started catering company, I'm like,
Powerful.
my
Powerful.
name, it's been
Mm.
there since 2010, so that's I think that's my first incident that I identified manifestation in. I wasn't even aware. Can you then
Mm.
imagine when you are aware, and you intentionally manifesting? So for me, that was around about 2014 when I started intentionally manifesting, started vision boarding. Not 2012, it was around 2014.
Mm.
And the funny thing is, my 2019 vision board, I only had a recent look at it now in February. I had not ticked off the items on that vision board. I was in tears when I saw it.
How powerful is that moment? Because
In,
that's literally how it happens for a lot of people.
in 2022, I saw my 2019 vision board and I was in tears because I couldn't believe it. Some of these things is like, this is a miracle. This is not happening. It cannot be that I manifested these things, and I didn't even know where they would come from. At that time, I didn't even
Mm.
know where they would come from, right?
Mm.
So that's what it's been for me. And now I'm very intentional about vision boarding. It's something I'm going to even promote through Mqhele as part of our future
Good.
plans.
Good.
So I'm pro vision boarding. I say I don't know how people are planning for their futures without it. And
Mm.
I've also I've also learned that you're manifesting. It's not just the cardboard and the piece of paper. I learned this through Oprah, right?
Mm.
And once I started really centering myself, it started happening. There is a way to manifest without, you haven't said it, you haven't written it down, you live it. She touched slightly on it, but when you live your manifestation, when you live as the person that lives in that future self, you've already manifested it.
Mm.
So if Babales, I've seen in one of your conversations, you spoke about vision boarding. And you made reference to seeing yourself as teaching somehow, sharing, imparting knowledge somehow. If you see yourself as that person 10 years from now, what are you doing in your daily life, in your small circle? Who are you teaching? Which 3 people before this YouTube channel? Which 2 or 3 people were you teaching in your daily life? Have you already put yourself in that position in practice?
In practice.
You know,
In practice.
you're big on family. You mentioned family. Are you living like a family man? Are you living like the family man that you aim to be? Or you want that thing, yet you still insist on living in this way, right? So a huge part of manifesting is, are you already in it? Are you already, you won't believe this. I made a very recent decision that particularly Facebook and Instagram. I used to be a very vocal person about my personal life. And there came a point where I removed my personal life from social media, not because there's anything wrong with it, but because my future self cannot have my personal life on social media for my own reasons. My future self has to focus on the impact that I have in the world. If my impact had to do with exposing my personal life, then yes, it will be there. But if it's just for me, I'm not doing it. So I'm trying to transition into living as my future self. I have my reasons why I cannot share, what about my future self cannot have a public profile? And what about my legacy cannot have a public profile? I have my reasons for that. But it's those kind of decisions that live in it, be in it, whether it's here or not. That is manifestation at its core. Be it.
Wow. Mind blown.
No, don't do
Mind
things like that.
blown. Mind blown. No, for real. For real. Because this thing is pretty complex but simple at the same time. And you've simplified the complexity in it. That's literally what you've done. I don't think I've encountered somebody, now take this compliment as you should, that broke down manifestation that clearly when I've just impromptu asked you the question about it. So it shows that you embody what you are talking about. It's not just a matter of you are making things up out of thin air. You're literally living what you're saying. And you did say it's about practicing, doing those little small things here and there instead of downplaying the power of manifestation, because we live in a time and era where people downplay it, but they have such big dreams. They want to achieve such big things, and yet the little things, it's like what I think it was Vusi Thembekwayo on an interview, I think on SABC or something, where he was talking about people want to be successful business people and they want to apply for funding in the millions. If you ask them what they've done, say they want R1 million to start a chicken farm, you ask them what they've done. Have they actually went out, sold the eggs? After selling the eggs, opening a butchery, have they actually built up what a farm embodies before they get there? So manifestation, I'd like to make that parallel to say when you are speaking about the practicing element, it's the little things that build up and culminate in those big things and those big elements.
Yeah.
Now
and
to
don't
take
you
it.
think, yeah, absolutely. Just you mentioned something so important. Aren't people scared of small beginnings? People are scared of small beginnings and people are scared of failing. People are scared of, oh, but what are people saying about this because it's not going the way I want it to go?
True.
How many times, anything I've started, I've been my biggest critic on some, this was horrible. But people are scared of exactly that, and people would rather sit in the judgment chair or the critique chair. There's a
100%.
friend of mine that we sort of grew up on the same street, and he repeats this quote every time: the person who matters the most is the man in the arena. It is not that one who's sitting there on the sides watching. And the problem is that we're too focused on these people that are talking and that are commenting and that are judging, and but she could have done that. Oh, this is not working out. This is a waste. You know, but who does he think he is? You remember the one day before, I think before the McG podcast, before you spoke about McG, I think, or before the Nota one, you spoke about the number of followers you had when you started. Yeah. In your first month, in your first video, everything, if you have 3 people watching you at most, firstly, you know those 3 are your loved ones. Let's just start there. You haven't even had an external reach to anyone outside your family and your
100%,
friends.
100%.
Are you gonna give up? Even if it takes you a year to get 300 followers, are you going to give up? No. The point is you spoke to 3 people and then it became 4, and you made a difference in those 4 people's day
100%.
by imparting some knowledge to them, even if it's just 4 of them. So I think people are really scared of all of that.
True. And without going off on a tangent, I'd just like to ride your bus a bit. That bus of people being scared of starting. What's the name of this channel? It Starts With You Network. And in every video, what do I say? Remember, it starts with you. Because people have that inhibition within them. They have that fear. They lack confidence, mainly because they lack information. Sometimes it's just self-esteem issues that have come up from their upbringing, right? And that has affected an awareness of self and them actually being proud of who they are and understanding exactly who they are meant to be. So this channel is about that, encouraging you to just get out of that starting block. All you need is to take that first step. You need to just do that one thing that gets you to the next step, one thing that gets you to the next step. You know that you have an overall goal, but recognize that it's those small culminating steps that will get there. And the sooner people realize it, the better. And I'm here to make people realize it. And through having people like you on the platform, it gets to jumpstart it even further, because when we speak one language, the person listening can actually relate to that language and say, hell, these people are actually making sense. These people are actually speaking to what I've always thought, but I'm scared. I have this inhibition, you know. But they actually speaking specifically to that, you know. And
and you know, we're touching a lot on, I mean, we were speaking about empowerment of women, and I think, you know, we must just touch on that boy child for a moment as well. But we're speaking about empowerment, we're speaking about manifestation, we're speaking about purpose somewhere in there, you know. One of the biggest mistakes we've made as society is dictating what children should be, right? So, and that's why people are struggling, partially, sorry. One of the reasons. We've dictated that you can only have an impact if you are a doctor, if you are a scientist, you know, and we've come, and then we live in a world where high focus on entrepreneurship. So now, if you don't have a business, you're useless, basically, you know. So there's all these conflicting statements. So my key thing around Mqhele Yezizwe as well is to help people African women, identify themselves, within themselves, who they are. Because then society doesn't get to dictate that you must be an entrepreneur, you must be an attorney. It doesn't dictate to you, because you have an understanding that you've had to search deep within your soul what impact you're supposed to have in the world. Maybe your impact is in relation to your immediate family, but maybe it's in relation to the world at large. Maybe it's in the agricultural sector, you know, food security. Maybe it lies in speaking, like you were saying, publicly, teaching, you know, prophetic, anything. So just teach people that there is no purpose that is more important than another. Everyone is here to play their role. That's it. Everyone on earth is here to play their role. Your duty is to play your role. Whether your duty is to excellently execute carpentry, you know, and out of your hands, build beautiful things with your own hands. That is it. You do that because you do not know who you are inspiring. If it's starting a business, it's that. If it's going to school and being highest of PhDs, that's exactly what it is. But you have to be centered to discover all of that stuff. It doesn't just stumble upon you. It's always a build-up over the years. And then you see the light bulb moment. You say, this is what my life has been all about all along, and I didn't know it.
Powerful stuff, powerful stuff. Now, I want us to jump into a sensitive subject, which obviously was inspired largely by the passing of Ricky Rick. May his soul rest in peace. I say it's a sensitive subject by virtue of his loss, but the actual subject, maybe the problem lies in its insensitivity or in its sensitivity, that there isn't much to combat it in the largest scheme of things, right? So I want you to speak from your own perspective, from a lay person's perspective. I am going to have interviews with 2 psychologists in relation to this subject. So they'll bring that scientific element and they'll bring that professional element. So I just want you to speak freely because I'm now disclaimering it out there that you are speaking from, your perspective and from a woman's perspective and your opinion. So people must understand that, because people like jumping on a bandwagon that they don't know where it started, So in terms of this element of mental health, what's your take on the current status? Because you sent me last week a WhatsApp which contained the stats of suicide on a global perspective, right? And in those stats, it was a clear gap between men and women, right? So I purposefully left that question of the boy child being left behind, because this is where I wanted us to speak about it. So what is your take around the current status quo of mental health in men and women, but also that element of the boy child being left behind?
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna engage with you on that in just 2 seconds. But this is the problem about interviewing women. Women are image conscious. All I'm seeing, I'm being distracted by my lipstick. My lipstick is off. And I'm like, no, what's wrong with my lipstick? Just give me 1 minute. I just want to put on lipstick.
Absolutely no problem. I'll just edit the part out. Don't worry.
Now imagine if this was live.
I think you were just gonna go with the flow, but you are gonna have that element inside you.
Yes, it's life. I believe in impromptu moments. That's what makes life beautiful. Like, not everything can be so practiced and structured and, but what if I needed the bathroom? These things happen.
Yeah, 100%. This is actually what I'm enjoying about this conversation. It's just flowing like nobody's business, and if I was on the other side viewing, I know I'd be stuck to the screen like that, just waiting for you to come back after you put on that lipstick.
Yeah. Okay, so may Ricky Rick's soul rest in peace. When Ricky Rick passed, it was just a trigger to our country, wasn't it?
It was.
It was such a trigger, because recently it was Uba Patrick Shai. And these are men that we relate to. We relate to the Babshais as fathers in the community, in the Black community. You relate to Ricky Rick as inspiration for the youth. He's inspired fashion, music. He's inspired entrepreneurship through legends. He's just inspired so many things in young people. We identify with him. We identify with him having gone through, I think, similar challenges in a similar world. Then there's people who identify with him in the artist space. So in the creative space. So I think really quite a loss to our community. Now it's a trigger because it's triggering this conversation about suicides among males. Why is it so high? You saw it was 4 or 5 times higher than women.
Yep.
And and then I looked a bit into it. 2 or 3 key elements that popped up. One, that men actually have guns more than women. And so the access to the means is easier. So obviously not every suicide is done through a shooting, but it was actually one of the reasons that men have access to weapons most of the time. A couple of households, the weapon in the house belongs to the man. Sometimes the woman doesn't even know about its existence. So having access to weapons, and also they have access to sort of just the concept of lethal ways of killing yourself with men, because you think of the aspect of strength, physical strength in men, and that also can help them execute suicides easier. So that was one practical reason. Okay. And then less on the practical side was also the element of men don't go out for help as often as women do. Okay, so funny enough, the stats were saying that women have attempted suicides more than men. Men are just successful at it.
Oh my goodness.
Men are just successful at it. And I'd love for you to also do some of that research yourself. I found that very interesting.
I'll definitely do that.
And then also there's the element of not going to get help because of the bias, because of we've said men should be strong and they shouldn't cry and they must man up. Men are afraid to seek help. Men are afraid to reach out. Men are afraid to get the right help in their space that will put them in a better place to manage whatever their anxieties are in life that are driving them towards thinking of suicide. Then there's also obviously the medical things like you mentioned, and we have to respect professions and get the professionals in to tell us, what is depression? What are you saying to me when you talk about chemical imbalances? How is it managed? Is it medication? Is it a lifestyle that you need to lead? Is it managing traumas? What is it? What does it look like? Because right now it looks like a different thing to different people. So we need professionals to come in and say, this is the textbook case of it, and this is what it looks like in reality, and this is how it's managed. And the challenge is our men are not going to those safe spaces where they can feel like they can manage these things without being ridiculed by society.
No, 100%. I'd like you to touch more on the element of this boy child being left behind as compared to the girl child, And I say that also with a pinch of salt, in the sense that we are addressing mental health itself, because earlier on you alluded to the fact that men have always been at the forefront and that's why the attention is on women. But in relation to the mental health, kids being told to not cry, and then men growing up with that element of suppressing their feelings,
Yes, right. How you see, I think the difference now, there's not much we can do about the past, but the difference now is how we're raising our sons and daughters. So now I have this challenge, because now I feel like we are driving towards an imbalance. So remember, we're empowering women to reach equality. Okay, there are formal aspects and policies that have to be implemented to reach that equality. That is non-negotiable. But while we are doing that, we must then not neglect. It doesn't mean that you do one in the place of the other. It doesn't mean just because we're taking care of the girl child, we should neglect the boy. But what's happening now is, here you are empowering women, building their characters, making them believe in themselves, then giving them the right opportunities. You're doing all of that to the girl child. But who's the girl child building the family unit with, right? Let's speak in the context of people who identify as male and female. We respect people who identify as anything else outside of that. But right now we are making specific reference to people who identify as men and women, and men and
100%.
women who want to build a family unit together. You've gone and empowered this girl child, but the only thing you've taught the boy child is that he must provide for his family. That's the only thing you've taught him. You haven't
That's
taught
the
him.
foundation.
You have not taught him to communicate his feelings, and not to express himself through violence. So, and you've taught him that men who cry are weak. So what is he going to do? He's going to act out in terms of violence. You have not taught him his value outside of the monetary that he can give his wife and children. You've told him your core duty is to provide. So what's going to happen when he can't provide? Can he identify with himself? Does he know his value? So now you have a boy, a child that does not identify outside of provision and monetary worth. He doesn't identify who he is. You've partnered him with this, what seems like a wholesome individual of a girl. How is that family unit going to function? So when we are leaving out the boy child, we risk this dysfunction. And right now we're not making particular reference to anyone who's committed suicide. We're making reference to the risk of neglecting the boy child in the community, and how that could potentially contribute to the anxieties and the sources of distress amongst men.
100%.
Is that we have said they are providers, and that is all they are. We have not identified them and built them as wholesome beings. And that is outside the medical and, respecting the profession and the medical terminology and the medical application of sources of distress. Because remember, there are psychological sources of stress, not only physical. So in terms of the psychological sources of stress, I feel that neglecting the boy child is one of them. Neglecting the boy child is one of the sources that lead to distress amongst men in communities. It is one of the sources. And if we do that, you're going to have all these empowered, taken care of women who feel like they can tackle the world, and you're going to find our boy children are left behind. So my question is, there's opportunities for men. We don't really have an opportunity issue for men. Remember, we're trying to address that for women. There's opportunities for men, but how are you creating safe spaces for men? Why aren't there men empowerment forums? There are a number of women empowerment forums across the world I can mention. What are the safe spaces for men to talk and to say, I am not happy with this, or I am struggling with this? Where are those safe spaces? Even on social media, Babaliz, have you ever seen a page that promotes men and the boy child and tries to keep the boy child safe and of adding value to the community outside of money?
Can I take the opportunity to say what there's that Amatimer Instagram page that was started by Titi Mba? So that's one powerful platform that focuses on the man and the male. So that's one I can name. But outside of that, there aren't many that I can name outside of my own workplace, where there's a men's forum that they're trying to push.
Though that's the right direction. Why isn't there a forum or a platform for men who want to build healthy, functional families? There's pages for women to do all of that. There's pages for women in the corporate space to be corporate giants. There's pages for women in entrepreneurship spaces, to encourage them in the entrepreneurial space. Family. There's pages about families and how women are managing families. There's seminars, talks, everything you can think of to build women, to build the girl child. Are we as actively involved in promoting the well-being of the men? Because what is the point of having these empowered women? Who are they going to build with? Those that want to build family units. We have to respect that not everybody does. But those 100%. That want to build these family units, which men are they going to build them with? If our men are traumatized and have a lot of stuff that they have not addressed, because what's society going to say?
100%. Thank you for unpacking that. I think it's a much needed conversation that's not being had enough, right? I'd like to now jump on the element of social media. You've highlighted how women have used social media positively. Obviously, there's still an imbalance even in that conversation, right? But you've highlighted that aspect of women using social media largely to share their message. For example, if a woman divorces today, within 2, 3, 4 months, they are already sharing their story for other women to hear and for them to learn about their experience and so on. Us guys, no, we have vices that we go to. Your alcohol, substances, there's a change of character, those type of elements. Now, on the flip side of social media, there's the negative side. What role do you think this social media is actually playing when Sorry, now it was my fault.
Yeah, I could see.
An automated call because they did it again. Sorry about that. But what role does social media play when it comes to this mental health aspect? Because that in itself has also received a lot of attention as of late, your cyberbullying and other elements on social media.
I mean, cyberbullying is there. It's very real. It's not a joke. But I always say it's no different from no. It can be different because I think on social media the difference is people feel even more empowered to bully you because they are not
100%.
facing you. But in terms of its impact, it's as negative as bullying that we went through in life, in school, in workplaces, as kids, as adults. These bullies all across. So it's just that the internet really is really, really aggressive because it's people who know that they don't have to be accountable for what they say. There's no consequence to what they say. So people feel free to really just be extreme. And that's my problem, that when two things, when we're not monitoring what value we find from social media, we can very easily just fall into the well of allowing social media to define us. Okay. So suddenly I'm defined by how many people approve of me, approve of what I post, approve of my expression, everything. Suddenly I'm defined by that. Now, everyone is human and there's no way these things cannot affect you. It's not possible
100%.
that it cannot affect you. But I do find that when we center ourselves more, really, and center ourselves in terms of who we are, we find that we give ourselves ammunition to manage that bullying. Okay, because we've built a confidence. When you were in primary, I was bullied before. I was bullied for bringing chicken feet, bringing chicken feet for lunch. In primary school, kids are mean, and
Definitely.
I was called chicken feet for the rest of that year. I was called runaway girl, whatever. So I feel like when we build character in our children, it allows them what helped me withstand those moments is what my family would say back at home, what my grandmother would say about what I should do about it, and it involves standing up for yourself. So that's a huge element of countering bullying on social media, but it's very difficult. And then social media must meet us with whatever internal challenges we have. I suffer from depression. Can you imagine in a time where I'm at a low in my life and I get bullied at that point in time? Someone has the ability, to trigger something in me. But I don't think social media bullying is a cause for something. I don't think it is a cause for high suicide rates. My opinion. I stand to be corrected. I'm going to listen to that session where we have professionals. My opinion is that it's not a cause of high suicide rates. My opinion is that through bullying, there are triggers to whatever it is we suffer from. If I suffer from chronic depression, very easily I can be triggered by something that is said to me by me, because I
Mm.
do not know what state it caught me in. But I don't
100%.
think we should really give social media the absolute power that it is the cause. We are all fighting battles that people know nothing about, whether in the form of actual mental illness, which is a real thing, you know, or whatever traumas you suffer from. People are fighting real, actual battles. And those are the things they are struggling with. The social media is just a platform that sometimes triggers those traumas in us. That's what it is for me. It's a trigger. It's a platform for triggers. And it's too big a platform because we spend so much time on it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I ask myself, what do we then teach the kids in terms of managing social media? Because we don't want them to be left behind in this digital age. We can't afford to have them left behind in this digital age. That's where the world is going. That's where the world is already. We can't leave them behind. But how do you teach the children to then manage all of that that will come to them and trigger them through social media?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Ntombana. And maybe one last or two last points that I want us to address. One of the issues is I honestly don't feel enough has been said. And based on your opinion and mine, it seems we are aligned to it. In fact, not enough has been done around issues of mental health. How many people know of Mental Health Awareness Month out of the 12 months of the year within South Africa? But how many people know about the 16 days of activism against GBV, right? So one element is that, do the powers that be actually focus and hone in on this particular element, just so that we are empowered, just so that we are empowered beyond just now the opinions of Ntombana Ntombana. Are they actually doing what needs to be done from a viewpoint and a vantage point where they see all the stats, they collaborate with Stats SA, they see it firsthand. But why isn't enough been done about it? What's your take? Is it maybe the transition I'm now leading? When they say leading the witness, could it be also the transition between the generations? The previous generation didn't say much around issues of mental health. And so when government does their census and so on, the focus is not necessarily on this mental health. And then the second part of it is, what can they do really to address this issue?
Like you said, it's going to take a huge focus. You have to be intentional about it. Okay, so now if we look at GBV, the GBV contributes to crime rates. That's the problem. And anything that contributes to a key problem to the public sector is then deemed a priority. And that is why you'll find us prioritizing GBV and awareness around GBV. Until such a time, I feel like this is the sad thing, until all our men die, fall like flies, then we will say, oh no, there really seems to be this mental health issue that maybe as a public sector, we're not looking deeply enough into. I believe that there are initiatives, but we're not making as much noise about it. I work, fortunately, in an organization that weekly shares, if not monthly, it shares what the organization does for mental health, the various resources that are available. So within a private sector, as an organization, you can be as intentional about it as you are about COVID awareness. Right. And I work in such an organization, very intentional about the well-being of employees and mental health. So I think that is a duty, should be a duty to all corporates, all right? It should be corporates. It should be a priority. The same way we were managing COVID, a physical illness, is the way in which we should be managing and speaking about mental health. So it's the private sector is who employs the bulk of the employed people in the country. So if you want reach, make it something that is practiced in the private sector. I think that's my first thing. And then obviously as a public entity, our government is going to have to be a bit more visible about mental health. But there's another element that I think we can't ignore. The race.
Get to it. Help us.
The race element. Okay. If we look at the stats, we could probably put numbers and percentages and ratios to Black communities versus other races. There is a community issue and stigma around mental health in the Black community.
So
we
true.
talk about it on social media and how Black parents, when you come back from a psychology session and the comments they make, and we laugh about it. But there is a stigma in the Black community, which is the largest population in this country. If the largest population in this country is not facing mental health head on, how are we going to resolve it over time? If, like you said, generations didn't believe in that. I live around, I've experienced around me people my age who have said it is not a Black thing, it's a white thing.
Same here, actually.
What do you mean psychology? It's psychiatry, psychology. Those are not things for us. Oh, I can heal by myself. That's the big one. Yes. People who don't even know that they are walking, ticking time bombs, they are just not diagnosed with whatever it is. Right?
100%.
So I think we also have a community thing, and maybe Babales, what will help is we're not in control of corporate structures at the moment. We're not in control of government structures. However, we're in control of the people around us. And I think we can influence the people around us. So I do think that our duty really begins at influencing the people around us. Have you had a mental health conversation with the men in your circle, your brothers, your friends, your mentors, mentees, your colleagues? Are you guys talking about the psychologist session that you went to? Because we are, my girls and I come from a session and I call somebody. I'm like, oh, I just discovered this about myself. I did not know, and you speak for an hour because people think all girls do is gossip. And you speak for an hour and the person is relating their version and is saying, oh, maybe I actually need to go see someone, right? If you normalize it, it stops having the stigma around it. If you normalize speaking about your mental well-being and seeking assistance from a professional, it stops being, in fact, it starts being, how are you surviving life without one? What are you doing? Because basically we're all really trauma bonded beings. So I don't know how we are surviving life if we're not reaching out for help, where it's really out of our control.
I love that. So what I'm taking is that there must be platforms where people open up and speak, organizations, men specifically, or men in particular, right?
Yes.
Organizations must also jump onto the bandwagon and make sure that they prioritize mental health in the same way that other things in the organization, such as profits, are prioritized. Because the one thing that organizations, when they are profit driven, what they don't pay attention to, unfortunately, is the fact that your profits become affected when something like that happens in your work environment, because everyone gets affected in that work environment at that point in time, right? So we must continue the conversation. What sparked it is something that was trending and a loss of life that we appreciate, right? But we must continue the conversation 2, 3, 4 months from now. We must prioritize this aspect of mental health. And I thank you for being free enough to share your opinion around it and basically demystifying the stigma around this issue of mental health. But over and above that, I thank you also for making the 2 hours available for us to have this awesome engagement, this awesome
discussion. Amazing.
Oh, wow, it was amazing. It was so empowering.
I think we can sit and talk for hours about 100%. Issues that affect society for hours. Yeah.
100%. And I'm so glad you're on that platform. And my starters, what I want you guys to do is follow Ntombana on all her platforms. Let me give you an opportunity to just reiterate those platforms
Yes.
for them, Ntombana.
Yes, you can follow Karisa Catering on Facebook and Instagram. That is Karisa_Catering. You can also follow Mqhele Yezizwe both on Instagram and on Facebook. You can also search for my name, Ntombana Mabena. It will take you to the Mqhele Yezizwe page. I'm looking forward to engaging. I'm looking forward to really reaching out to people, empowering women. I always say to women that I have conversations with that my aim is women empowerment, but I love and appreciate our kings. And one thing I try not to do is make it a us and them. I can empower women without really demoralizing men, but instead trying to uplift them as kings. It may not be my calling, but they need to understand that the queens that we are building need equally participating kings who are healthy, well-rounded beings. So I really hope I can reach units and kingdoms and not just women. And I do think that through building women, we're able to build societies at large, because remember, by nature, women have a teaching ability, have ability to pass on things to other people and to share and to influence societies positively. So through empowering women, I'm even saying, speak to the men, speak to your friends, your guy friends, your brothers, talk to them about these topics that matter in society, so that we are well-rounded family units and not just well-rounded women, so that everyone feels important and everyone feels taken care of. So really through Mqhele Yezizwe, I really hope essentially it'll reach out to be impact on families as a whole in Africa.
Thank you so much, Ntombana. I love how you've embodied all that you are, man. It just inspires me so
I
much.
love this nowadays. I feel so honored. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so thank you very much, guys. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and this content is worth sharing. Come on, let's be honest to ourselves. It's worth sharing, and deep conversations are being had, and this information and knowledge and wisdom needs to go out there. So please do the right thing. And remember that in every aspect, whether it's business, it's spirituality, whether it's mental health or health in general, because now one of the things that we forgot to discuss around the mental health aspect is the issue of from a self-awareness point of view, what can people do? But I think it's a conversation that we can have in future regarding issues of diet, exercise, meditation, and being in tune with nature. Like, you know how DJ Spoo was ridiculed with the issue, yeah, hugging a tree, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, people just aren't in tune with nature in that way. And it's sad. But it starts with you to be in tune in that particular respect. So thank you very much, Ntombana, and have a blessed one. I wish you all the best for the future. And people, just so you know, we talk on a regular basis. So I get to benefit and she gets to unload all this wisdom on me on a regular basis. So yeah, it starts with
Thank you, Baba Liz. You are equally as inspirational. Thank you so much. God bless you and your beautiful family. And I hope we can do more of these. And one day we're going to do this on a stage. And we can reach, and we can do this on a stage, and we can reach the units that we're talking about, the men and the women. So I can't wait for things like that.
100%. Cheers, Mbana.
Okay, cheers. Bye.
Bye.